Happy hump day. Welcome into our Sports Burst Studios. Drake Cordero in the house with his infamous wave. Today's National App Day. And so I want app.
Like APP?
Yeah.
Application?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I wanted to know which one was your favorite.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, it's a tough question. I was thinking about it for myself. I mean, the one that I use the most is probably, social media related, like Instagram.
It's
but
Twitter. It's absolutely
yeah.
Twitter.
It's Spotify.
I just had to look
Yours
at my
is
phone
Spotify.
to see, like,
That's a good one.
I just checked my phone to see where the smudges were. It's on the Twitter button.
So that's your favorite app.
Yeah, it is.
Favorite because it's the one that you use the most, or?
Well, favorite because it allows, we're gonna do a pitch for Twitter now.
Yeah.
It allows me to create lists. So for example, my news and politics list has 500 accounts of journalists that I like.
Uh-huh.
And so I stay up to date.
Yeah, and it's nice and organized. Well, you guys out there, let us know what your favorite app is on National App Day. And if you don't say the beIN Sports app, well, you're wrong. Because mine, we should have said the beIN Sports Connect app, which is phenomenal. So everyone go get it. But yeah, let us know what your favorite is. We're going to do a full UCL recap of yesterday's matches and do a little bit of a preview today. And also talk Carlos Vela, because is he headed to Barcelona?
No.
Well, his teammate says yeah. No. Okay. All this on Sports Burst that starts now. Let's hit the comment section before we move into Champions League. Oh, Kelty Tipo saying Netflix. That's an interesting
The Netflix
one.
app? Yeah, I feel it.
But yeah,
We were
I
just
don't
talking
really
about The Irishman.
Yeah, we were. That's what I'm going to say. I
Of course you
don't
do.
think I use it on my phone too much.
Oh.
Interesting. Luis Salas, hi guys, happy to see you live. We're happy to see you live, Luis. AC Beverage saying my two favorite people. Wow, Dre's a favorite.
Get in.
Thomas Aaron saying hello from Virginia. Hello, Thomas. And Fabian Cardellino is going to get right into it, so we'll move on with him. Barca's youngest ever goal scorer, youngest player to score an assist in La Liga game, Barca's youngest ever UCL player, and the youngest ever UCL goal scorer in Champions League history, Ansu Fati.
Yeah.
Boom.
Kick
Remember
and
the
play.
name. Born on beIN.
Right.
But yeah, what did you make of Barcelona's performance yesterday? Late win over Inter.
Well, my first reaction was to look at the lineup and think that it was pretty unserious from Ernesto
Right,
Valverde,
right.
because obviously Barcelona had nothing to play for. That game was all about what Inter could do to try and get themselves in. And I wouldn't read too much from Barcelona, because it was a setup that I don't think they're going to repeat.
Right.
It was a lineup that I don't think they're going to repeat in a meaningful game. And so, yeah, it did feel like, if you wanted to be polite about it, you would say this is experimental. If you wanted to be a little less polite, you would say it was
The B team.
not serious.
Yeah.
And for Inter not to be able to take advantage of that opportunity on their home soil, I think is sort of damning on Antonio Conte and on their club. And granted, players like Sensi being out is a big deal for Inter. But
Right.
Inter are top of the Serie A table at the moment. They're ahead of Juve and Il Calcio. And so you're gifted this opportunity on the last day of the Champions League on your home turf against a Barcelona team that it's not just that the players weren't of the level that you would get in the starting 11,
Right.
but the lack of familiarity, because not only do they not play together often, when they do sort of practice together, it's never in that shape, in that system.
Right.
And Inter couldn't find a way to take advantage of that. I mean, it speaks relatively well of Barca, who we've made a big deal of how bad they've been away from home.
Right.
But this is not something that I think is repeatable for Barcelona. And again, it's damning for Inter to not take advantage.
What does that say about Serie A, that the league leaders cannot beat a B team Barcelona
Right,
side?
and you see how Juve are struggling at the moment, or struggling in regards to how they have been in seasons past, where you expect them to be running away with
Right.
it. You see Napoli, who we'll talk about in a moment, down in 7th place, 17 points off the pace.
Right.
So it makes you question just how good is Inter this season, how good is Serie A at the moment, when the league leader couldn't dispose of this Barca on their home soil.
Jean Kiel saying, I will say Martinez keeps growing on me. He's sensational. Lautaro Martinez swapping shirts with Luis Suarez after the
Incredible.
match. Maybe a little foreshadowing there. Could you see him eventually make the move to Barcelona, maybe take over for Luis Suarez?
There's been a lot of talk about him, obviously, because he's Argentine, because of the connection with Messi, because
Right.
they played on the national team together. But Lautaro is going to be a very, very expensive signing. So are Barcelona prepared to dish out another $100+ million in the next transfer market after already doing it back-to-back years to pick up Ousmane Dembele and Antoine Griezmann?
Right.
We saw a really interesting interview with Luis Suarez recently. He sat down to speak with beIN Sports, where he welcomed Barcelona going out and signing a young, quality center forward to compete with him, to push him,
Yes.
and to eventually replace him. Lautaro would be best case scenario, but best case scenario would also come with the highest possible price tag. So that's got to be factored in.
Absolutely, but it appears Barca fans do want to see Lautaro Martinez. Raul Rodriguez saying, I want Martinez at Barca. What a player. And he really has had a sensational season. Mohamed Bassam, Barca are clicking at the perfect time. And this was the B team.
That's why I wouldn't say like they're clicking at the moment. You know, like yes, they played very well at the weekend in the league match. And it's good to rotate the squad and give some players some rest. Not travel with PK, not travel with Messi. Some of the players that are 30 plus, they get a chance. And they got a very capable backup goalkeeper in Neto. Obviously, they had a very capable one last season in Silicin as well. But it's encouraging for Barcelona. But again, it's not the most repeatable thing. It's not something you could necessarily build on. Though there were players here who were desperate for minutes. I think Carles Aleñá is a guy who stands out to me as a guy who's just, it's baffling how little opportunity he's had to actually play.
Right.
You saw how good he was given the chance. I'd love to see more of that.
And speaking back to this guy, some people in our comment section saying maybe the hype is too much too soon for Ansu Fati, but he seems to be handling it quite well. Yeah. What do you make of his rise? Is it too much?
Right. Beware. Right. Ryan Moran actually bringing up a good point as well that Jean-Claire Todibo.
Great performance.
A very strong performance. I called Todibo's top flight professional debut when he was at Toulouse. He was a midfielder, converted to a center back, and debuted as a center back for Toulouse in Ligue 1 like a couple of seasons back. And obviously didn't last there very long because Barcelona snapped him up in the January transfer window almost immediately after his debut.
Right.
And he just had those characteristics to me that like you want in a Barcelona center back, a player who, the ball is not going to burn his feet. He's happy to have it, maybe a little too happy at times in that game. But he can dribble, he can pass, and he's got sort of the athleticism, the speed to get back and defend when Barcelona playing that high line. And sometimes you are just, dealing with a team on the break. He's excellent at getting back and covering up. Ansu Fati, Mike off camera makes a good point about, beware the spirit of Bojan Krkić. Bojan came very, very highly touted from Barcelona's youth system because he was their top scorer. He was sort of the heir apparent at a time when Barcelona were looking for, who's the next Lionel Messi to come up through the academy? There isn't one. Like, stop looking. You'll find other pieces.
Right.
And so in some cases, the expectations were too big on Bojan. I feel like Ansu Fati's being brought along kind of nicely by Ernesto Valverde. We so seldom give praise to the current Barca manager, but...
Yeah, it's true.
He's given Ansu Fati his opportunities here and there without making the team in any way reliant on Ansu Fati.
Right. It's been slow and steady, which I think suits Ansu Fati. Fati, the new wonder kid. Someone else saying, super respect for not celebrating the scoring when they didn't need to win that game. Shows his character, Fati. That might have actually been a subconscious celebration because he says that when he scored, the entire stadium went quiet, obviously, because that bumped into the Europa League. And he was like, oh no, what did I do? Like, genuine confusion. It's a great moment from Ansu Fati. But speaking of Barcelona, a lot of people saying that they'd love to see Lautaro Martinez, but news of the day breaking that Jonathan Dos Santos allegedly confirming that Carlos Vela has an offer from Barcelona on the table for the January window.
Right.
Are you buying it?
I said no sort of jokingly at the beginning because I hate transfer rumors.
Has Messi been consulted?
Yeah. The question, does Messi approve? You guys out there, let us know if you think Messi will approve of this guy joining Barcelona in January.
That's what I was going to say. There are stranger sort of winter pickups by Barcelona, like Boateng, who had a pretty decent start at Sassuolo and then all of a sudden found himself at Barcelona and barely played. I know, it's so weird.
It was almost something that he couldn't even believe. He's like, you guys want me? Okay, I'll come. And did nothing.
And obviously Carlos Vela does have La Liga experience and was very good in La Liga before going to MLS. He's the best player in MLS this season.
Right.
So would he help? He would help, but he's also not a straightforward center forward. I think maybe he's a guy who competes. Maybe he's the one who competes with Luis Suarez, to try and take some minutes away. But it seems a bit of a weird move to me. And until I hear a little bit more about it, I'm not 100% sold that it's an ideal fit. And two, that it's going to go down.
The weird thing is that this would even be a question for a player. I mean, you think that when you get a call from Barcelona and there's an offer on the table, you say, yes, don't care, where do I sign? But this is a man who is apparently very comfortable in LA, and it doesn't really have the ambition, that spark and love for the game to make the move?
I haven't spoken to Carlos Vela directly.
Neither have I, but these are reports.
I don't know that he would be what's holding it back. I think he would be on the plane if that were the case.
You think? As any player would, you would think.
Most, right.
Yeah. Well, you guys, let's see what you guys are saying about this. Oh, God, everyone's saying no. Brian Moran, Vela is the next Boateng. Raul Rodriguez saying, no Vela, Barca needs to get Martinez or Haaland.
It would make more sense than Boateng. I mean, we can agree on that.
That one,
Maria Teresa saying, no Vela. John Ice saying, remember Barca fans were justifying the Boateng signing? Yeah, LOL. Netson DLZ saying Vela will play right bench if he joins Barca. Everyone's saying fake news.
He's going to be a death pick. He's not going to start.
Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I'm not really buying it either, but for Jonathan Dos Santos to confirm it almost.
Right, and so you have also Carlos Perez, who did score against Inter, who hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities. He's still very much a Barca B player,
right,
but has looked good when given some chances to play with the first team. You've got young attackers like Ansu Fati, again, not the same position. You're not talking about a center forward, but
right.
There are other players who I think could get minutes on the current Barcelona roster. So you don't necessarily have to go after somebody this January, I don't think.
And Josep Bartomeu, if you're listening, our comment section does not want Carlos Vela at Barcelona. So we'll move on. Just to wrap up that group, Barcelona obviously finished top. The fight was for second place. Inter bumped down to third because of that Barcelona victory. So they will head to the Europa League. It is crazy. And Dortmund did the deed, 2-1 win against Slavia Prague. So they are headed to the next round. Let's start with the beginning of the day, which was Salzburg taking on Liverpool yesterday. Liverpool could have been sent down to the Europa League, but they did the deed also. 2-0 win against Salzburg. And it was a really interesting moment between Klopp and Jesse Marsch at the end of the match, where Klopp kind of, grabbed him. There were some words exchanged. I think there's a tremendous respect between the two.
No question. I think Klopp could understand, just how well Jesse Marsch's team played, and especially in the first half. I mean, up until the first goal, there were serious stretches where Salzburg were the better side, and you started to question, well, they can't knock the defending champions out of the knockout stage, can they? And then it kind of came apart with two defensive mistakes fairly early into the second half, and it was hard for Salzburg to recover after that. And that seemed to give Liverpool sort of a burst of confidence that I think Salzburg's first half performance had taken away from them. Like you saw, I'm not going to do armchair psychologist thing, but you saw a little bit of doubt sort of creep into a Liverpool team that just wasn't working because they were being outworked by Salzburg. So I think that respect, that mutual respect that we saw at the end there was genuine, and I do believe Klopp was impressed with Jesse Marsch. And I think we should all be incredibly proud of the first American to manage in the Champions League and put those kinds of performances together with a team that, while it's a good team, while it's a talented team, isn't at the level of its rivals in the group stage.
And against some of the best teams in the Champions League, like the reigning champions Liverpool and Napoli. Amr Bahadi, Salzburg versus Liverpool. First half was so tense, didn't want it to end. It really was. Yeah. Mohamed Bassam saying exactly what you just said. Every manager has to respect Marsch at the moment, and he earned it. Bavon Gray, Salzburg shot 6 shots on target in the first half. Is that a record against Liverpool this season? That'd be interesting to look up. But of course, Salzburg headed to the Europa League because they finished third, because Napoli got the job done. 4-0 win against Genk, and Napoli manager Carlo Ancelotti still got the sack.
As you do, you win 4-0. You advance to the knockout stage. Check. You fire the manager. Check. Wait, no, that part's a little weird.
Yeah, it's. We spoke about this yesterday. It was reported that he would be fired regardless of the results, but they did get the result. Headed to the next round of the Champions League. He gets fired, and now Gattuso seems to be in line to step in.
Rino Gattuso, he is the next Napoli manager.
Yeah.
You said it. Yesterday, the report was that regardless of the result, regardless of where it went, they were going to move on from Carlo Ancelotti. The club, in their statement, claims that the personal relationship between Ancelotti and De Laurentiis is good.
Intact.
That's well, they say it's good. Yeah, intact. Exactly. I think it's been attacked.
Yeah.
No, it's intact. Why not? Maybe this was something that was talked about ahead of time.
Yeah.
I do think there's a calculation here by Napoli. I don't agree with the calculation, but I understand that it's almost exclusively financial, but not exclusively financial.
Okay.
So getting knocked out in the next stage of the Champions League, which would be not out of the question given Napoli's season, would see basically their earnings from the Champions League just stop at where they're at right now. And under Ancelotti, this did not look like a team that was headed back toward the top 4 of Serie A. We've talked about the struggles in Serie A at the beginning here, where it's a winnable Serie A this season.
Right.
And Napoli, who have been there in contention year after year, aren't there right now. And so with Rino Gattuso, they believe he's more likely to get more out of the team in the domestic competition, whereas Carlo Ancelotti would be more likely to get you to progress in the Champions League.
Okay.
And so they're prioritizing the league because they want to get back into next season's Champions League.
Right
now, they're eight points outside of the top 4 in Serie A. And so I think what De Laurentiis may have been trying to avoid was a scenario where Ancelotti, who has more Champions League titles than anybody else, is going gung-ho all in on winning the Champions League, getting as far in the Champions League as possible, and kind of ignoring a bit of the Serie A, whereas what they would prefer is to make the top 4, and doesn't matter what happens in Serie A, in Champions League this season. What they want is to get back to the group stage next campaign.
And now looking at Carlo Ancelotti's future, headed maybe to Arsenal, now is the favorite to take over that job.
I don't know, but I do love that, like, the reaction is always like, well, so-and-so got fired, well, so-and-so need a manager.
Move it here. So we're all instant move.
We're like trading cards, you know?
It really is. Well, I mean, Arsenal fans seem to be excited about this possible appointment. I mean, he is a world-class manager, but is he what Arsenal needs right now?
Very old-school manager as well, Ancelotti. I don't know that. Listen, Ancelotti can go to Arsenal. He can manage Arsenal. Arsenal are a big enough club for Ancelotti. Right. Ancelotti's a big enough manager for Arsenal. Yeah. So it may work out. It may not. It may just be paper talk. But I do think there's going to be quite a few jobs available in the summer where a manager of his stature can sort of just take the rest of the season off, go fishing, and then pick your spot, pick where you'd like to go out of several options, as opposed to being just like, it's Arsenal or bust. You know? Right.
And right now you have, a ton of world-class managers available. You have Pochettino still available, and now you have Ancelotti, you have Max Allegri, who still doesn't have a job.
Right.
I mean, so yeah. Someone asking, is Arsenal beneath Carlo Ancelotti? I don't think so. I mean, not at this point in his career.
Is Napoli beneath him? I don't.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, they're not. But,
no, they're not. They're not.
But if Napoli's not beneath him, Arsenal's not beneath him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I feel like level, kind of lateral move.
John Ice saying, who runs Napoli? The club is insane.
It's De Laurentiis.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he is. Listen, we need to do eventually a whole show on just Serie A presidents and team owners, because they're the most colorful people imaginable. For example, the president and owner of Genoa was once banned from matches at the stadium, and so he put a life-size cardboard cutout of himself in the presidential chair, so the cameras would still capture his image at the ground. De Laurentiis once, after a game, he was upset. He grabbed the reporter's camera. He was being accosted by paparazzi. He grabbed the reporter's camera. He smashed it against the ground, and then he jumped on the back of a random scooter. Just the guy that was passing by jumped on the back of the scooter, gave the guy a slap, and they took off, and he fled the scene in some dude's scooter.
That's like a James Bond movie.
Yeah, these are the guys who are running, the clubs in Serie A at the moment. So you can have these weird situations where you win 4-0, you qualify for the next stage, and you're sacked the very next day.
Well, yeah, so never a dull moment. So just to recap that group, Liverpool are top, Napoli finished second, and Salzburg headed to the Europa League. So really interesting teams headed to the Europa League. The rest of the day played out. Lyon and Leipzig drew 2-2, so they are both headed to the next round of the Champions League. Benfica solidified their spot in the Europa League with that third place win. And then the big group in this one, we didn't know how this one was going to finish. Valencia taking on Ajax yesterday. They needed a win. They went top, which was a great performance by a Valencia team who has had quite the tumultuous first half of the season.
It's been really bizarre. But it speaks highly of the players that, they responded to the firing of a manager that they liked. At first, they sort of refused to speak to the press to try to keep everything in-house, and it seems to have worked. Like they steadied things. They're ultra competitive, and they should be, because they have a talented squad, and they have a massive game coming up this weekend with Real Madrid visiting Mestalla.
Right.
And I'm really eager to see how they respond to what they did in the Champions League at home against Real Madrid this coming weekend.
So Valencia topped that group. Ajax, third place, headed to the Europa League. There was actually footage, and it hasn't been confirmed if this was the exact moment then Frenkie de Jong noticed that his ex-team Ajax were headed to the Europa League, but he looked really, sad and disappointed.
Dejected.
And Chelsea picked up a 2-1 win against Lille, so they take second place in that group and are headed to the next round. So interesting matchup. What's really interesting is taking a look at who the likes of Real Madrid, who finished second in their group, now can face, because there's obviously very tough teams in the first place.
Yep.
So that draws on Monday. But we still have more Champions League matches today. But everything pretty much done and set here. Shakhtar taking on Atalanta, and Dinamo Zagreb taking on City. City are top of that group, and through Shakhtar and Dinamo Zagreb fighting for second place in that group. So keep an eye on that. Club Brugge taking on Real Madrid. This group is also decided. PSG top the group, and Real Madrid in second place. But if they don't pick up either a point or a win today against Club Brugge, this will be their worst tally in the Champions League at 8 points in the 21st century. Reflective of kind of a transition year under Zidane 2.0, right?
What you mean?
Like, I don't know, because I mean, Zidane comes back. You expect him to bring back the magic that he had for 3 years, and that's not the case. It's been a slow start for Real Madrid.
Sure, and I think the Champions League has also been a bit of like a sanctuary for Madrid in recent seasons, like away from La Liga, where Barcelona dominated. It's pretty much the Messi era, though Zidane did win a league title.
Right.
And so, I think with clubs like Real Madrid, you just have to get into the knockout stages, and then once you do, like, go ahead and face Madrid at the Bernabeu. You know, you're going to guaranteed to get a leg at home, and those are the games where they always, no matter what their form was domestically, they always seem to shine like brightest in those spots. So, is it an overwhelmingly like dominant campaign? No, but Madrid didn't really dominate Champions Leagues. They just won them consistently.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like where they were the types of teams that like would give you chances to score, but they would outscore you, and without just being this absolute juggernaut. And yet they would just pick themselves up for those moments. I expect this Real Madrid team, who have been on the rise, by the way, and I've played some of the best football they have since Zidane's return in the most recent matches. I expect this team to be among the 5 or 6 that are like the odds-on favorites to win the whole thing.
And then PSG taking on Galatasaray in the battle for the Europa League spot. Interesting little tidbit, though. Atalanta also could be fighting to move on in the Champions League in that city group with a win against Shakhtar. So that is an interesting group.
Yeah, they're in last place.
With 4 points.
No, but they're in last place and they're still in the hunt for the Champions
League. They can get the Champions League with a win, 3 points. So that's an interesting group. Let's move on to the Juventus Atleti group, because there's actually something still to fight for here. Atleti need a win, or Juventus hold Atleti's fate in the Champions League in order to move on. They need Bayer Leverkusen to lose or draw to Juventus in order for Atleti to go through.
It's weird. It's like they can double draw and get in, or they can win, or Juventus win.
But also another weird year. You're sweating.
I am. It's really hot in front of the screen.
He's sweating thinking about Atleti not making it through to the next round of the Champions League. What do you make of Diego Simeone's season? I mean, if he does, I think he'll get the job done. They just need a result against Lokomotiv Moscow, and you would think that Juventus can get a result at Bayer Leverkusen.
So they control their own fate, which is
they do.
A positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they've had I don't have a mic on.
Technical difficulty.
No, it's just hot. You know, guys, it gets hot talking about the Champions League.
They control their own fate, so that's the positive thing. But this isn't an Atletico team that you can have a ton of faith in because of the lack of goal scoring. So they're going to be competitive in every single match. Like, no one is going to blow this team out.
Right.
But you just never know what you're going to get from them offensively. And I think in large part, they depend so much on their front two to score goals, whether it's a combination of Diego Costa and Alvaro Morata, or whether Joao Felix gets an opportunity to line up in attack. And for the most part, those guys have not come through for them this season. Alvaro Morata has been relatively solid, but he's never been a super high volume goal scorer.
Right.
And you've got a midfield who, I like the quality of the players they have in midfield, with Tomás Partey, with Saúl Ñíguez. Koke, he's a leader in that team, and he's obviously come up through their youth system. Thomas Lemar. None of those guys are goal scorers. So you don't have, when your strikers aren't scoring at the clip that you've depended from them, you don't have that second wave of attack that you can, get an attacking midfielder to provide some more goals for you. And so if you can't score goals, you're not going to beat the top teams. Not, breaking news on that.
Right.
So I can't trust this Atletico Madrid to be the Atletico of old. And I think Simeone saw that before any of us, and he went on the radio and was criticizing some of his players, saying, we'll be a great team when Lemar performs up to his level, things of that caliber, when Joao Felix matures a little bit more. And so that's why I think he said, we're in a transition year. And when the manager tells you that, believe him.
Yeah. Absolutely. And on the other end of things, an interesting story emerging in Italian press and also Spanish press, speaking about this Juventus team, that Cristiano Ronaldo now regrets his move to Serie A and to Juventus from Real Madrid, saying that maybe he lost 2 Ballon d'Ors because of it.
I'm not buying.
I bring this up just to bother Dre, but it is an interesting take because, not in terms of the Ballon d'Or, because you can only become so obsessed with that, but in the scope of his career, maybe.
I think it was a good move, to be honest. I think it was a good move for him because it allows him to, at a time when every player is going to start slowing down, he goes to a league where older players have thrived. Luca Toni won a scoring title late in his 30s in Serie A. We saw players like Di Natale, prolong their careers at Dzeko above the age of 30, do extremely well in Serie A. So I thought from that perspective, it was a good move for him. He's won trophies in England, he's won trophies in Spain, he can go and win trophies in Italy. And joining Juve specifically was almost, guaranteed titles because he joined a team that had won 7 consecutive Scudetti and helped them win their 8th. He won, for example, the Serie A Player of the Year honor. I'm not sure he necessarily deserved that.
No.
But if you didn't deserve that, you definitely weren't at a level where you're going to win a Ballon d'Or either.
Right.
So I thought it was a good move and continue to believe it's a good move for Cristiano Ronaldo, considering Juventus are a team with which he can win. Granted, they haven't been at their best this season. They're still sorting things out under Maurizio Sarri, but it's a team that should be in contention for a Champions League, and he could add another, several trophies to his resume before he's done.
A lot of you saying Mo Salah for sure was a good move for Benzema. Finally, we're seeing Benzema shine. A lot of other Ryan Moran saying Ronaldo, you poor little baby. Ryan, that's not very nice. Anyway, and to round off the Champions League today, Olympiacos taking on Red Star Belgrade. Olympiacos need a win, and then Bayern and Tottenham with a rematch of the day. We've completely run out of time, and I'm being told to say bye-bye, but this is a reminder that we are now 7 days away from the Clásico, exactly 1 week, live and exclusively next Wednesday right here on beIN Sports, so you won't want to miss it. Bye.